Distinguished Senator Mongoro, you are being captured. DSP, we are on. Okay.
Distinguished Senate President, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. First and foremost, before I comment on the general principles of the budget, I want to lay one very fundamental foundation that goes to the root of Nigerians having the benefit of the budget. And that fundamental thing that I want to point out is the issue of implementation of the budget. Budgets, no matter how beautifully presented and couched, is not going to translate into concrete realities in bringing about dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of our people unless it is religiously implemented in accordance with the spirit and letters of the Appropriation Act. To that effect, I will implore my colleagues, distinguished senators, since the Constitution has given us the power of oversight, to perform our oversight duties in accordance with the provision of the Constitution by religiously guarding and protecting the legislative powers of this assembly by way of oversight, because it is only through our oversight function that we will make sure the budget is implemented in accordance with the spirit and letters of the Appropriation Act to bring dividends of democracy to the doorstep of our people. Having said that, Mr. Senate President, distinguished senators, the philosophical cornerstone around which this budget revolves is the issue of security. Security is of primacy to any government, because the social contract the people have with the government, to the extent of surrendering their sovereignty to the government, is that the government in return will guarantee peace, order, and good governance of the country. That is why the people surrender their sovereignty to the government. And it was on that basis that this budget places security, or gave security a place of prominence, as espoused by the speech of Mr. President, especially against the backdrop of the problem of insecurity that we have across the nooks and crannies of the country. And without security, there is no meaningful economic development that is going to take place. I salute this budget. This budget deserves a pat on the back for bringing the issue of security to prominence. Then the issue of job creation, Mr. President. We are all aware that one of the root causes of problem of insecurity that we have in this country is the problem of our teeming youths that are unemployed. An idle mind, as they say, is a devil's workshop. There is a need for us to create the necessary environment to the private sector to create employment, generate employment, whereby we can observe the youth and engage them meaningfully, and in the process reduce the problem of insecurity that is now like a monster threatening the corporate existence of this country. On this backdrop, I wholeheartedly support the second reading of this appropriation bill. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Benson Koboe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to sincerely thank Mr. President for bringing this budget of renewed hope at this time. Mr. President, sir, as it is known to anybody that the appropriation placed and laid before us is a budget that a country has to work with. And from the remarks of Mr. President, I have no doubt in my mind that as a Democrat and as one that have been an advocate of good governance in this country, Mr. President and all the ministers that have come on board will do exactly what Nigerians want. That I mean, from Mr. President's speech, which I have an extract, he said, and I quote, "I have no doubt that you will be guided by the interests of all Nigerians. We must ensure that only projects and programs with equitable benefits are allowed into this budget." This is Mr. President's word. And he went further to say, only projects and programs which are in line with sectorial mandates of MDAs and which are capable of realizing the vision of our government should be included in the budget. Mr. President of the Senate, sir, I'm particularly gratified because the vision of this government is also the vision of the people of Nigeria. That I mean, where I'm coming from, I always say it, that where I'm coming from demands so much from Nigeria. And this budget has that note of inclusiveness, that note of togetherness, and the desire to take back what the people are asking for. And that is why I'm so much happy with this budget. Mr. President, sir, from the discussants, and also while you were campaigning to us, you had always said, we should judge you by your performances when you were in government as governor. That always goes deep into my mind whenever we are discussing about performance and project enunciations in our polity. Your Excellency, sir, why I'm bringing part of your discussion is because now you are leading this arm of government, and Nigeria is looking so much to you and to us. And I believe that with what you did in Akwa Ibom while you were a governor, if you have that spirit still in you, and which I believe that you are still with, and you continue to pilot the affairs of this Senate by way of budget performance, particularly in driving the cause of oversight, my President, sir, the sky will continue to be your limit. With these words, I just want to believe that we are going to do justice to what is laid before us, and will pass this budget in record time. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, distinguished Senator Benson Koboe, for your kind words to the Senate President. I can see the Chief Whip smiling. Because he's not from the South, so he probably may not know that you are talking not as a convert, but as somebody who saw it all. So it's important that thank you. So let me invite my brother also from the South to add his voice to what he has seen. The distinguished Senator Ide Dafinone.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Ide Dafinone, and I represent Delta Central. I'd like to observe some details of the budget for 2024 and then close with some comments, if I may. First of all, the budget is prepared against the background of a challenging global and national environment. Globally, we are seeing slowing global growth, geopolitical tensions, especially with the Russia-Ukraine war, persistent inflationary pressure, and supply chain disruptions. On the home front, we are seeing revenue mobilization challenges, elevated inflation, negative impacts of insecurity in sections of the country, and a challenging domestic business environment with pressures on the exchange rate especially noted. The budget then takes due cognizance of both the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, and then also the strategies in the 2024 to 2026 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and FSP. But very noticeably also, it takes cognizance of the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President and the present administration, which was used significantly throughout the campaigns. I now want to highlight a few of the assumptions surrounding the budget, especially noteworthy: the oil benchmark price of $77.96, oil production target of 1.78 billion barrels per day, and an exchange rate of 750 naira to the dollar. My emphasis today is to look at the oil production targets especially, with the backdrop that the Senate in plenary about 6 or 7 weeks ago identified that our production level for the second and third quarter fell approximately 28% below production targets. And therefore, when we look at the production target in the budget of 1.78 million barrels per day, especially against also the recent OPEC reduction of our quota, there's a need for the government to continue to focus nearly on a daily basis to ensure that we meet that target, to ensure that we have the sufficient revenues to fulfill our budget promises. Added to that, sir, Mr. President, I'd like to also highlight the need to grow non-oil exports, as well as to grow the internally generated revenue, especially from taxes, to shore up our revenue base and ensure that the promises made to Nigerians in this budget of transformation, if I may call it, are successful. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Babangida.
I did not. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues. First of all, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'd like to speak to the two areas of priorities as outlined in Mr. President's budget. One, internal security, and two, human capital development. The first one, Mr. President, should be taken as given. Without security, securing our facilities and equipments and securing human lives and properties, we can't aim to achieve anything. Permit me, Mr. President, to refer to the oil production quota, daily oil production, when this government came into office in May 2023. In the month of May, the oil production, daily oil production was 1,446,000 barrels per day. It ramped up till October to about 1,562,72 barrels per day. A marginal increase of about 100,000 barrels. Yes, if we ramp up production, and as the economists will say, ceteris paribus, all other parameters remaining the same, we will expect to meet the target of 1.7. But I would have thought a more conservative figure of around 1.5 would have sufficed under the circumstance. That's one. That figure itself is dependent on other variables. Number one, the cost of production itself. Number two, the cost of oil on the international market. Number three, the peace and stability in the production areas, which is very important. So I think that dovetails into my argument, into my position on the issue of internal security. We have seen significant improvement in the areas of production, the stability in the Ogoni land, the general calm and peace in the Niger Delta, which is quite impressive. Kudos to this administration. But more needs to be done in order to ensure that we deal with the issue of piracy, we deal with the issue of bunkering, we deal with the issue of siphoning of our crude oil from illegal pipelines. I think that should be looked critically into. Secondly, the price of oil on the international market is also dependent on a lot of factors, because there are two simple variables that deal with nations and individuals: hope and fear. In the light of the prevailing global issues, the Ukraine-Russia war and other skirmishes in the Middle East, I believe we should also be mindful of the volatility of the international oil market. So therefore, I think we need to interrogate the daily production quota that was used to raise funding for the budget. The issue of debt service, 5.79 trillion was committed in 9 months for debt servicing. I think for a growing economy like ours, this should also be looked into. Lastly, Mr. President, the issue of human capital development. All of us here are fully aware of the excruciating poverty in the land, unemployment, teeming youth pounding the streets with CVs and certificates, but there is no job. I think we are all aware of the challenges this poses for a developing nation like Nigeria. We must find jobs for this teeming youth. And this budget should address itself to that fact. Because, yes, it is said there are jobs, but there are no skills. So we should critically look at the issue of stepping up the skill level of our children and these unemployed graduates, so that they can be employed and they can have jobs, which I quote again, that the jobs are available, but the skill set is not available. On this note, I want to commend the bold and the confidence upon which this budget was predicated, budget of renewed hope, and to which that on our part here, we must also step up our major legislative function of oversight with diligence, with attention to details, and we must roll our sleeves, put on our face caps, and go to site and look at things critically and bring them to the flow where we need to be. But overall, I think it's an ambitious budget and is achievable if other factors are taken into consideration. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Sadiq Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Sulaiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North, and we all are. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, let me first and foremost thank Mr. President for the brilliant budget speech, which was delivered with a renewed hope, passion, and precision. Again, I want us to take note of several paragraphs in that speech where Mr. President was copiously appreciating the National Assembly. Indeed, that is a sign that this government, the executive, is ready to work with National Assembly collaboratively in the interest of our people, because only with cooperation and collaboration that our people who send us to represent them will benefit. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, most of the fundamentals, the assumptions, I agree with. As much as they might appear ambitious, as most people have cautioned, for example, the projected GDP growth at 3.7%, exchange rate of 750 naira to $1. But I think that if this hope that we have in this country is going to be renewed by this government, it is time to be bold. It's time to take big decisions, courageous decisions, and we all know, Mr. President, trademark is courage and boldness. And we look forward to seeing this through throughout this year. Mr. President, I have little concerns. One, debt servicing, 8.25 trillion, that represents about 30% of the total budget. It's worrisome, but hey, we are here. That's an accumulated debt. And as a responsible country and a responsible government, we want to always, keep to our obligations. And so, but we look forward to how this will manage as we go on. Recorded expenditure 43%, that's very high, as everybody has agreed, but we all know that this is necessary, but we also look forward to this being dropped gradually as the hope is getting renewed from year to other years. Capital expenditure, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, 8.7% trillion, that is 32%, which is an increase over last year's 27%. And as you know, we know where we came from, where capital budgets are hardly at 20%, but there has been a gradual increase since 2015 that I can remember, and now we are at 32%. We are not yet there, and I look forward to us going until we get to where we need to move our capital projects to. Interestingly, deficit financing has dropped gradually to 3.8%, not desirable, but that's good enough. Even in the most developed societies, we all know that that is hardly ever met because the country has to survive and grow in the interest of future generations. Mr. President, my distinguished colleague, in Mr. President's speech, he has made it clear that security, human capital development, education, health are going to be priorities, and this is what I'm most interested in for our country to develop, and that is clearly listed. However, Mr. President, the only thing I'm yet to see, which I can only see when I see the details of the budget, is to see that this chair that my people have sent me to come and occupy, I'm able to defend it that my senatorial district is properly taken care of in the budget, because we have the most challenging road network in terrible state. Almost every senator here knows about that. Education, health, we are challenged in all areas. So I look forward to seeing that my people are well taken care of in this budget. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Dismissed Senator Igbizagwa.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, I remain Jide Ikpishagba from Ondo North Senatorial District. I'm going to talk on the aspect of the exchange rate to Naira that is fixed at 750, which is the main hub of this budget for it to be successfully implemented. Now, we must insulate our exchange rate system to operate it as a fixed exchange rate system, whereby this 750 will remain 750 for the duration of this budget. And to do that, we must provide some key areas of this insulation. One is production of goods and services. We must be able to involve in activities that will yield us foreign exchange. We must be able to involve in projects that will turn to Naira and Kobo, which will make this project to work effectively. And again, we must live in a peaceful environment that is free of war, that is free of constant strike, that is free of continuous upheaval. To do that, we have to consider the peace in the Niger Delta area. We must empower the Niger Delta environment. We must ensure that we concentrate some activities in the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, whereby they can look at the amnesty program very well, whereby they can give a robust package to the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. If we do this, we can be rest assured that this budget will fly and will all get there as planned. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, the chairman of appropriation is listening to the appeal that the distinguished Senator Jide Ikpishagwa said that peace in the Niger Delta will contribute greatly to the attainment of the goals of this budget. And therefore, in your appropriation, you must appropriate for peace. And that means enhancing the ability of the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs to be able to achieve a lot. Distinguished Senator Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my dear colleagues. Henry Siraki Dixon, and I represent the good people of Bayelsa West Senatorial District. Mr. President, we all listened with rapt attention to Mr. President 2 days ago when he addressed the joint session to present the appropriation estimates before us as required by the Constitution. And we have since then listened to several submissions by various members of the National Assembly, and particularly
is Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. A number of issues have been brought up for discussion and for attention. I know that a number of my colleagues have expressed the view that the budget is very optimistic, and I also feel the same. But optimism is not a bad thing. Optimism is not a bad thing. It's a very ambitious budget, and we can only hope and pray that there will be corresponding fiscal discipline and responsibility, and also on our part, our readiness and capacity to exercise oversight to ensure that the general principles that underlie this budget are met. Mr. President, it's a very ambitious proposal, and Mr. President is starting on a very ambitious note. And like I said, there's nothing wrong in being ambitious. Optimism in terms of reducing, generating growth in the GDP. Over 3% growth in the GDP is very ambitious in the circumstances. Reducing debt servicing, bringing it down to about 8.3% from where we are. It's very ambitious in the circumstances. Now, funding the deficit. Mr. President, in his statement, has said the deficit will be funded from privatization proceeds and from loans from multilateral agencies and partners. We can't completely query borrowing for now, but it's important that when specific requests are made before the National Assembly, and in particular before the appropriate committees, finance, foreign and domestic loans and so on, those committees, I believe, and all of us at the right time should ensure that the borrowing plans and the purposes for which these proposals are made will be properly scrutinized at the right time. But it's a very ambitious budget. We can only wish that the executive arm, on their own part, will show fiscal discipline and show at all times responsibility. We have not seen the specific details, but in general terms, it's interesting to note that attention has been paid to the preservation of law and order and security and stability of our country. And in doing so, the last speaker talked about the need for more expenditures in the Niger Delta, because if you look at the entire budget, for the past 60-something years, and this year is no exception, all these estimates will come to nothing if we don't ring-fence security and stability in the oil-producing communities and in the oil-producing region, the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. And so I associate myself fully that the ministry that has been set up for that purpose, unfortunately, in the last 8 years, has been funded in a rather lackadaisical manner, with all due respect. For example, the key project that was given to the Minister of Niger Delta to complete for the benefit of the peoples of the Niger Delta, sometimes it's taken to this ministry, works, and funds are not appropriated accordingly. It's tied to multilateral borrowings which may or may not come true. So the East-West Road up till now has not received the kind of attention, Mr. President and my dear colleagues, that it ought to receive. When in 2007, the late President Yaradua created the twin programs of the Ministry of Niger Delta and later initiated the amnesty program, it was believed that the Ministry of Niger Delta will somehow be like the FCT. Be like the FCT. That is a ministry set up to address peculiar challenges of development. But I'm sure if you look at the details, which are not out there, but from all the information that I have, it seems to me that again, even in the next appropriation year, it's only 13 billion or so, very paltry sum. When other ministries have appropriations of 500 and something billion, 600 and something billion. So again, this government, by what they have presented, has not demonstrated the requisite commitment. And that has to be clearly stated. Allocating 13 billion, what can it do? And tomorrow, there will be talks of, we are looking for Sukuk borrowing to complete the East-West Road, which has defied all solutions, unfortunately. And the main reason it has not been completed, even with the best of intention, is because it is not followed through. The budgeting is inadequate. Budgeting has not been taken seriously. So I want to say, Mr. President, that this National Assembly and this Senate in particular should use our powers to allocate more funds to see to the completion of the East-West Road. I know that this Senate has set up a committee. The committee, I'm aware, has visited. The committee has started interacting with major stakeholders. But by this appropriation estimates when passed, this Senate should make a clear statement of commitment and seriousness so that we appropriate funds, because that is a power that belongs, that's a power that resides in this National Assembly, so that they have the funds they need in a year or two. We finish that road and then talk of other projects. Let me, before I yield the floor, say that there are issues now that we cannot run away from. And even now, the President has joined his colleagues around the world in Dubai for COP28. Climate change is real, and the world is living with the consequences if we don't respond accordingly. And this country cannot lag behind. The institution that has been set up, the Nigerian Climate Change Commission, should be funded. I hear what they have is just about 300 and something million. What can they possibly do? It's not even enough for enlightenment. So I want to call on Mr. President and my colleagues to use this opportunity of this budget to adequately fund the NCC. We have also received a lot of complaints from across the country because of the devastation of the environment, the erosion problems. We should also not leave erosion to be attended to in the way and manner it has been done, because it's not adequate. So I want to call attention to that. All in all, Mr. President, it's a very ambitious budget, and we commend optimism, and we will all put on our thinking caps and get ready to ensure that we oversight it closely and ensure that the parameters are met. I rest my case.
Thank you. Dismissed Senator Saleh Mustafa.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, may I lend my voice to the passage of this budget by also commending Mr. President, the Commander-in-Chief, for this renewed hope budget and for the proactiveness of this present administration. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, in lending my voice to all the important and the beautiful encomiums that have been passed on the proposal of this budget, I would like to draw our attention to one critical area, which is agriculture. We've all spoken about the security, education, and health that seem to have been given some level of priority in this budget. I would want us to look at agriculture. And if we remember very well what the president said in his days of campaign about us being able to feed ourselves as a nation, then we must pay more attention in the appropriation of making sure that agriculture takes a better place in this budget. If you remember the Maputo Convention or Protocol, which states that 10% should be given to agriculture from the annual budget of every country. Unfortunately, here in Nigeria, the best we have achieved was in the days of late President Yaradua, when about 1.3 or 5% was given to agriculture. And if we must have a happy and prosperous nation, then we must give more attention to this sector so that when people can have the opportunity to feed themselves, then all other prospects of a country will be attained. So I will plead with this hallowed chamber to see the need where we will look at the possibility of also helping to appropriate more for agriculture, such that the teeming youths who are jobless can be encouraged to see agriculture as a means and as a way of earning a living, so that what we have in abundance in this country, which God has blessed us with, is the potential of agriculture, and we are not making good use of it. And for us to make good use of it, we must give it a proper placement in our appropriation. So in supporting the passage of this budget and also commending the president, I will also plead with us to please look inward again in this area of agriculture I have been hammering on, and also in skill acquisition, so that we can produce what we eat and we can create more jobs for our unemployed teeming youth. With these few words of mine, I will please again plead with us to see that we do the needful. Even if we can't meet the 10% of our annual budget to agriculture, let's even try and at least start somewhere, even if it's 5%. I'm sure if we do that, then we will have gone a long way in reducing the level of hunger that is being faced in this country, because we are all affected with the same market forces. Both the executive, the legislature, and the general citizenry of this country, we will always patronize the market for whatever we want to eat. And I'm sure if we are to take a census here, if you ask all of us here now who have not eaten today, maybe out of 30 of us or 40, you will find out that almost everybody have eaten something. But if you ask how many people have bought fuel today in their car, some will tell you in the last 5 days they've not. So we must pay attention more in this sector so that we can grow this sector and promote it. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Odende.
Thank you, Mr. President, my dear colleagues. My name is Emmanuel Memga Odende. I represent the good people of Benue Northeast. I'm from Benue. Mr. Mr. President, I want to associate myself with all the views that has been expressed earlier. If you look at the budget, there are more merits than demerits. The budget objectives are good. The assumptions too are very good. We have had a reduction in deficit, which is also very good. And the percentage allocated to capital is also better than last year. I urge my colleagues to ensure that we pass this budget. But sir, I will conclude by urging for inclusion of these road projects in my senatorial district. The road from Ogbemajatoka to Join Water is a border town. There has been an agreement between Nigeria and Cameroon that Nigeria will construct the road from Ogbema to Jatoka to Join Water. Cameroon has done theirs, but Nigeria has not done it. I urge this Senate to include this road into the 2024 budget. Then the road from Agwaji, Tseagberagba, Konya to Hugh is terribly bad. And lastly, Bokolese and Teke Road. On that, I urge my colleagues to pass this budget for second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Ndubweze.
Mr. President, thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Engineer Patrick C. Ndubweze. I will join my colleagues, most distinguished gentlemen and women here, to appreciate our president. One, he spoke with absolute firmness and from the inner of his heart, showing or exhibiting his conviction that he is directional and he knows where he's heading to with our economy. Well, a lot have been said about the budget. My colleagues have looked at the budget from various angles and analyzed the budget from various angles. As far as I'm concerned, is a little improvement we have had in the capital provision, capital expenditure, but we need to do more. We have spoken a lot about the security in this country. It's not by condemning insecurity, but it's by thinking in and out of the box. What do we do to stem insecurity in this country? We have to stem corruption. We have to provide for productivity. Nigeria will manufacture nothing today, and that is why our naira hit 1,300 per dollar. And yes, pegging the exchange rate to 750. Let us not be assuming too much, but I'm not pessimistic. Rather, what I'm trying to say is we should move into think, what do we do to get this thing done? He has presented a budget of hope. We need to add to oil this hope. There is absolute need for Nigeria to have at least 2 more refineries in this country. There is absolute need for us to stop importation of refined oil. Oil producing since 1960, we should be refining here. By so doing, we can stabilize our exchange rate. And as such, we go into production. The only way to stop insecurity in Nigeria is that we create employment for the youths. A lot of our youths are doing nothing. we know that idle minds are devil's workshops. And what do? Is that we have to look into that. Let's look inwards. What do we do to prevent idleness amongst our youth, amongst our citizenry? Let me give an example. Ajokuta Steel Complex have been there since 1979. The billions, if you check the value of the money invested already, convert it now, is in trillions, abandoned. If we cannot, and that's my proposal, that we may not be able to finance it now, we'll bring in the company that built it ab initio and stop where they are and have a very good agreement with them to build, operate, and transfer. One, they will produce what we require for car manufacturing and all the rest of them. They will produce the beams with which to build road in America doesn't take the years we spend here. You produce the beams in the factory, they at Ajokuta, and assemble it. Under 2 months, we have built a very long bridge. So we have to go inward. And we have car manufacturing firms here in Nigeria. They need that Ajokuta product. It doesn't stop at that. We have to return back. When I was young, we have in Nigeria, we have official car, Peugeot. But if we do produce vehicle here, Innocent and all the rest of them, what I want to tell you, I've tested Innocent pickups and the Hilux pickups, even in my company. That Innocent product is stronger than the Hilux, especially for site use. Why is it? If the FCDA or Minister of War gives you contract to provide vehicle for the supervisors, they will recommend Hilux. When you have a stronger one, and when you are buying this one at 22, 25 million, that Hilux is selling at 32, 35 million. Why? So I don't think it's a good deal. So we should look inwards. I want to draw attention, please, that this bill have gone the first reading. Federal road bills, which will bring in the road board, the road authority, the road funds. It is the next direction for us to build our roads. If not, we will not have good roads. And I want to plead with the Senate. The federal roads that pass through my state, especially my federal constituency, are one that transcended from Enugu to Port Harcourt, and one that moved from Ihiala, Olo to Umuahia. The two link roads proposed for years, Umuelemmai to the end of that federal road to the Enugu Express, Enugu Port Harcourt Express Road, and the one of Isiweke to Enugu Port Harcourt Express Way have been abandoned.
If the federal government does all, when do you become governor, which one will you do? I need to thank you for your contributions. Chairman, Appropriation is going to give you the list of the roads. Thank you so much. Dismissed Senator Idiot.
The Senate, Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Idiat Oluranti Adebole. I represent the good people of Lagos West. Your Excellency, I must say that I believe that the proposal in the 2024 appropriation bill is laudable, is applaudable, and is noteworthy. Not because of anything, but because those of us that are familiar with Mr. President's antecedents when it comes to management, we know very well that this is just the beginning. Not only Is it going to address the critical infrastructure that Nigerians require? It's going to put this country in a good stead such that we can compete with any nation of the world. This budget of renewed hope, which seek to address economic growth, macroeconomic stability, better investment environment, enhanced human capacity development, as well as poverty reduction and greater access to security, is very commendable. And I believe, by the grace of God, with the implementation properly done, Nigerian citizens are going to be better for it. As a teacher, I'm particularly happy that education is put where it should belong, in the good stead in this budget. Because education is that instrument that we need that will bring about a desirable change in a learner. Education also allows citizens to know what is right and what is wrong. It also gives them the opportunity to know what to do and what not to do. Because I believe education has this great impact in the citizens of Nigeria. I believe that the president is on the right path, particularly when it tries to state categorically that even in the education sector, what this budget is going to address is the long-standing issues in the education sector. A more sustainable model of funding tertiary education will be implemented, including the students' loan scheme scheduled to become operational by January 2024. Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I want to believe we are on the right path. We are on the right path because as much of our citizens are educated, the better for us. The better for us in the sense that they will know that asking them to pay taxes is not something that is coming from the blue. Asking them to ensure the environment is clean and the environment is better is not also something that people need to force you to do. So I want to believe, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that given the opportunity that this budget is implemented very well, and we avoid bureaucratic whatever that normally will hinder the implementation of budget, if we do that, definitely we are on the right path. And by the grace of God, coming back next year, we are going to be saying something that the whole of Nigeria will be happy with us in Senate and will be happy with our president. Thank you. God bless.
Distinguished Senator Johanna.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I am Amos Johanna, and I represent Adamawa North Senatorial District. The priorities for this budget, Mr. President, warm my heart, especially when it prioritizes the issue of job creation, infrastructure, and more particularly human capital development. There can be no any developed country without human capital development. And Peter Drucker, who is arguably the father of modern management, states clearly that human capital development is at the heart of any development in any country, in any corporation. And so when Mr. President lays out clearly that the budget will focus, among others, on human capital development, it is a step in the right direction, and it is at the time it should be. And so I really commend Mr. President for putting this forward and for driving this so that we can achieve something that has eluded us for many years. Having said that, Mr. President, I want to draw our attention to the issue of the exchange rate, which has been mentioned by many distinguished senators. It is pegged at 750, but let us not forget that out there, it is 1,150 naira, which makes a difference of 400 naira. And that sector, that parallel market, is driving this economy in the direction that we don't want. Because when people don't have access to the official rate, the easier way for them is to resort to that parallel market. And so I want the people who are driving the fiscal and the monetary policies to pay attention to that, so that this budget that is very laudable can be implemented and the results become impactful on the lives of Nigerians. Because that black market, in quote, drives the prices in our market. From things like tomato to spinach to almost everything. And that makes it uncontrollable. And so we need to urge, and this distinguished Senate needs to call the people who manage our fiscal and monetary policies not to ignore that sector, so that we can draw the gap and narrow it, so that the parameters of this budget can be implemented and become impactful. Thank you, Mr. President, for the privilege to speak.
Senator Agadaga.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to contribute to the 2024 budget of this that is presented by Mr. President. I want to also say that the budget is quite laudable. It has actually touched the areas we expect to touch. I'm personally interested in the assumption that we shall have 1.78 million barrels of oil production per day, and it's fixed at a price of $77.96 per barrel. I know that there are a lot of variables that contribute to the production of oil in Nigeria. And all these variables have to do with peace, where the oil is being produced. Peace and stability is not something that we have to overemphasize. Because we need peace in the Niger Delta, where the oil is produced. The federal government has taken steps to make sure that there's improvement in the Niger Delta in terms of infrastructure and other areas. That is why we have the Niger Delta Basin Development Authority. We have the Niger Delta Development Commission. We have the Minister of Niger Delta. And we also passed the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act, which largely had to do with improvements of the lot of the people in the Niger Delta. The problem in it is implementation. As we speak, the Niger Delta Basin Development Authority cannot bite, it cannot perform because of lack of funding. The Minister of Niger Delta, like it was mentioned earlier by some speakers, including my leader, cannot do anything because the budgetary provision, there are just 30 billion naira, which is just for recurrent expenditure. How can we build a road in the Niger Delta with 13 billion naira. We are aware of the fact that the Niger Delta is an area that is very difficult to develop. 1 kilometer road in Niger Delta to be constructed costs 3 times more than what it takes to develop other parts of the country. So we need the funding of the agencies that will give us peace in the Niger Delta.
You have 10 minutes, 10 seconds remaining. Oh, Senator Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Anthony Siakoyaro, representing good people of Gombe South. Let me align myself with all our previous colleagues in congratulating the President in this very ambitious proposal. Yes, good for the country, and particularly the difference that the President made is the will to implement certain things that we need to do. He has started that with the removal of oil subsidy and is on it. Let's commend him for that very well. I want to observe that national budgets are very key. It can be made as an instrumentality of uniting Nigeria, giving sense of belonging. That brings me to, though we don't have the details of the sectoral allocations and the rest, that equitable application of the total budget to this country, to the nation, will foster unity beyond what we imagine, will foster a sense of belonging beyond what we imagine. So I believe that when we see the details and the sectoral allocations, it will really answer these issues so that this country can be united and sense of belonging beyond the high pedestal. I want to comment a little bit. Yesterday's lead paper by my leader, it was very, very detailed. But if leader were here today, I will say, leader, you are turning from lawyer to accountant. On this page 3, the first paragraph on his lead debate paper, leader made mention about it's important to point out that issues of revenue shortfall and meeting expected emergencies can only be tackled either by 2 ways, borrowing or cutting expenditure. I said, yes, borrowing. But if you look at the mood of the nation, I've determined this from, at least from my own senatorial district, which I believe it is cutting across. The issue, if we tackle the issue of borrowing, this nation will jump in upload beyond what we can imagine. The number one thing in the minds of the people has been this borrowing element. Now, but it's now decreasing, but something better can be done. And the areas that can be employed to sustain that, the exchange rate that has been the little devaluation, further devaluation of the naira will be a huge source of money to reduce borrowing. The removal of fuel subsidy will be a huge source of money to reduce borrowing. Now, and if you look at the figure for debt servicing and the rest, is almost equating the budget deficit, 8 versus 9 trillion. To me, is good because, like the chief whip mentioned earlier, that is borrowing is not bad in itself, it's what you apply it to. So if you see that the figure for borrowing is almost equal capital budget figure, then you see that it could be, we can generally say is being applied in the right direction. However, since we have the opportunities to reduce this by the things I mentioned earlier, sources of...
Anthony, you have 10 seconds remaining.
I will say, in summary, that yes, very good budget, but let's look at the areas of shoring up our revenue so that we don't give our own selves shortfall in that. Thank you very much.
Senator Adams Oshomole. Sir, you spoke, I understand that you made your contribution yesterday. Okay. Okay, because the chief has just drawn my attention that you had your time yesterday. So have you withdrawn your chief whip? Oh, sorry. No, okay, sorry. He's the deputy leader. He acted as the whip yesterday, and now he's saying that you had your time yesterday. Oh, okay, you can go on.
I don't know why they want to oppress a small man that is already small. I wrote on the register that I want to speak today, not yesterday. I only commented on child abuse and women abuse yesterday. If that is an offense to the acting leader, thank God you are acting. Mr. President, let me lend my voice and commend you for getting us to sit today, being Friday. I think this is to respond to Mr. President's request that we do everything we can to maintain the budget cycle. And you have provided leadership for us to sit. And that for me is an indication that we are ready to make all the sacrifices we need to make to ensure that the National Assembly is not found wanting in terms of the critical idea of when does this budget take effect. There is no need to recycle the arguments already made about the key objectives. They are laudable, they are clear, they are doable. But I want us to be careful in commenting on some of the issues that we had already discussed, namely exchange rate. Those were discussed about 2 weeks before. And I'm not sure it's going to be helpful for us to revisit it. Have you already passed a decision on it? But the additional point I want to raise is that exchange rate is not a matter for parliaments to debate. It should not be a political issue. It is a matter that should be driven by competent, well-skilled, well-thought-out macroeconomic policy. It is those policies in effect that will determine whether the Naira dashes up or it dashes down. I believe, as the President said yesterday, we are supposed to do everything bold, take tough decisions on the economy, block leakages, ensure that Nigerian people get value for money, and we sensibly focus on job creation, which simply means producing more at home rather than importing more from abroad. If those policies are achieved, they would actually have positive impact on exchange rate. We have to be careful. We can't endorse the activities of those who are operating outside the system as being the key drivers or those who determine what our exchange rate should be. That is why those or people who claim that they are buying Naira at 1,100, I'm like, we as senators, we shouldn't be seen to be patronizing a market that is unknown to law. Therefore, I think the 750 is okay. If I have my way, it should be 500. Because the indicator should be that as a nation, we do not accept that the Naira continue to suffer endless flogging. It makes macroeconomic objective, in my view, to target the idea of bringing down the exchange rate and achieve stability at the rate of 750 or even below. Lastly, in order to keep to time, sir, I hope that those resolutions we pass in this House that we directed to Parliament, this is the occasion to visit them, with particular reference to the Bini, Auchi, Okene, Lokoja Road. That job has passed through almost 4 presidents. And as we speak, Mr. President, I can't go to my village from Benin. Senator Monday cannot go home. So I hope that the appropriation committee, when we see the details, that road is reflected during this dry season so that this government can have the credit of completing a road that has passed through several presidents. If we don't get that road done, the economy of the South-South is severely affected, particularly the construction sector, because all the solid minerals in Edo have to move through.
You have 10 seconds remaining.
It's a serious economic challenge for the people of Niger Delta and if you like, for the whole country. Because going from Lagos to Abuja, that is the road our trailers have to pass. That is the road that services two giant cement factories that are driving part of our economy and creating jobs for our people. So I want to plead, I'm happy the chairman of appropriation, you are listening, that regardless, since I haven't seen the details, that Auchi Bini Road is reflected in the budget, and with a view to completing it this year, 2024. I mean, this next year budget. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Sharafuddin, but I can see the name of the former President of the Senate, Senator Amela. I don't know if he wants to speak. If you... Okay. So, Senator Sharafuddin, you can... Oh. Wait, okay. Sharafuddin is not here. Okay, you are here. Okay. He has is the next person. He is.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity to contribute on Mr. President's appropriation bill for year 2024. I want to join our other colleagues in commending Mr. President on this appropriation bill. Just talking on the general remarks there, we all know that in Nigeria today, one of our main problems is lack of security. And he has given priority to defense and national security. So we have to commend Mr. President for it. One of the problems that we also have again is youth restiveness and the fact that very many of our youths are unemployed. And to Mr. President, human capital is very, very important. And he's giving this a priority as well, because employment is very, very crucial, especially in this country today. Going further, the issue of education and health are also matters that are very, very important today, especially when what we have today is like what we used to call brain drain, is Japa syndrome, whereby people who don't probably have jobs here decide to go outside the country for greener pastures. And also in the health sector, this also has also affected greatly our health sector. The issue, what we only need to do is to ensure, and this is one of our jobs here, that all money that is appropriated for in these areas will ensure that we get value for the money as Nigerians. Another area, looking at the making just general remark, is the fact that the revenue that is being proposed, a larger percentage of it is from the non-oil sector. That means that we are drifting or moving towards having some independence and preparing for, like what we have today, what is happening today in Dubai, for that we need to continue to move away from our dependence on oil. But be that as may, because the issue of security will also have effect on our agriculture. And this is an area that I think Mr. President should please help us look at, so that our dependence on imported foods will be reduced. But then, in terms of infrastructure, I want to appeal, and I'm happy the chairman of operation is there, that the roads around my senatorial district, the Ibadan-Ife road,
The Ibadan.
You have 10 seconds.
Then the Ibadan-Abeokuta Road, Ibadan-Oyo-Ogbomoso-Ilorin Road. These are roads that cut across several senatorial districts and about 3 or 4 states. So I want to appeal to Mr. President to please consider embarking and ensure that we complete these roads in the coming year. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
SARS, distinguished Senator SARS, and so Shaib Afolabi Shuaib. To Afolabi Shuaib.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Shoaib Afolabi Salisu. I represent the good people of Ogun Central Senatorial District. At the risk of repetition, I join others to commend Mr. President for putting together a budget proposal that shows clarity as to where the country is headed and also demonstrate the commitment of his administration to the New Hope agenda and to enhance the living conditions of our people, putting certain comfort, particularly at this time that Nigerians are going through some harsh conditions. Having said that, there are 3 things that seem to cut across the submissions of most senators. One is equitable distribution of infrastructure in our various constituencies. Number 2 is to also ensure that the positive indication that we have seen in the budget translate from being indicators to actual performance in the lives of Nigerians. Third and the final one for me is oversight function. And I will address this very shortly within the remaining 2 minutes. The last speaker, distinguished Senator Sharafuddin Ali, who I have the honor of sharing borders, our senatorial district border. When we talk about infrastructure, Ogun State is unique in many respects. We're the only neighbor Lagos State has, meaning that everyone going to Lagos, and remember every Nigerian has an ambassador in Lagos. You pass through Ogun State either by road, by water, by air, by whatever means. So there's a lot of pressure on roads in Ogun State. And 2 examples is the Lagos-Abeokuta Road on one hand, and Abeokuta-Ibadan Road on the other hand. So when we get the details of the budget, it will be important to regard these roads, not just as roads belonging to Ogun State or your state or Lagos, but roads that belong to all Nigerians who have reasons to go to Lagos. The second point I'd like to emphasize, Mr. President has done something novel. He created a position of special advisor on policy coordination. And he went ahead to make the minister sign some bond specifying key performance indicators. This Senate approved the nomination of the ministers. This Senate is also being called upon again to approve the budget. If you have this constitutional responsibility that I consider to be sacred, we must also do uncommon things in providing oversight functions. We must go beyond the performance.
Senator Sars, you have 10 seconds remaining.
And last but not the least, we need to deploy technology to ensure that government services are made more easily accessible to the citizens. We use technology to reduce costs of governance. We use technology to minimize corruption. And we use technology to monitor performances of these projects and the programs that are initiated. Once again, I'd like to join others to commend Mr. President, and I thank the President of the Senate for giving me this opportunity.
Next speaker will be Senator Zam, then Senator Monday. But before then, distinguished Senator Idiat approached the chair to request that she should be given a supplementary time, additional time for her to add to what, so that she can make mention of something she forgot to mention when she contributed. But I told her our rules do not allow that. She had gotten her chance and she has done with that. But I will help by mentioning what she has forgotten to say to the hearing of the Chairman Committee on Appropriations. She wants the chairman to know that there's a need for the road within Festa Town in Amuo local government to be constructed, and also to expedite action on Lagos-Badagry Expressway that is ongoing. I hope you're okay with that. That's good. So you have the floor, Senator Zam.
The Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Dr. Titus Statengezam. I represent the good people of Benue Northwest Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to also add my voice in appreciating Mr. President for bringing this budget of renewed hope to the hallowed chambers for scrutiny. Though we are yet to see the sectorial allocations, but from the speech made yesterday, it's very clear that Mr. President is at home with the thinking of Nigerians. Hence, the caption of the budget as Budget of Renewed Hope. The name or the title of the budget suggests that, yes, Nigerians are hopeful that a new administration is on board and their yearnings and aspirations will be addressed. Mr. President, you will agree with me that from 1999 to date, which is the lifespan of the subsisting Fourth Republic, this is the 24th budget that the National Assembly will be passing. And that tells you that the developmental aspirations of this country have equally lasted within this time frame of 24 years. How well these budgets have impacted on the totality of Nigerians is a matter of debate. Mr. Senate President, I come from one of the most backward senatorial districts in north-central Nigeria, and the indices are very clear. Where I come from, Benue Northwest Senatorial District, my own local government of origin is inaccessible whenever there are rains. The road there is not motorable. I drive on a good road from here to Makurdi, but linking Makurdi to my local government area is a major challenge. Now that this budget is before us, I'd like to crave the indulgence of the Senate to see to it that my own local government and the rest of local government areas are connected road-wise to the state capital, so that our people too can enjoy the dividends of democracy. Having said that, Mr. Senate President, I also want to bring the attention of these hallowed chambers to the fact that security is a major challenge. And Mr. President has started well with the rejigging of the security leadership by appointing new security chiefs. So much is expected, and the results from the time he came on board to the present situation does not speak to the fact that we have actually enjoyed a new lease of life. So this budget should take into account the need, the great need for increased budgetary allocation to the security sector, so that there will be no excuse whatsoever again. And then agriculture. For us up north, agriculture is our oil and gas. So while the people in the southern part of the country pride themselves as owners of gas and oil, up north here, agriculture is our mainstay. I will suggest that agriculture, as earlier mentioned by distinguished Senator Mustafa, agriculture should be given a pride of place, because our people need food, our people need all of those.
You have 10 seconds remaining, Senator Titus Zam.
I therefore submit that the road from Naka to Makurdi, just 40 kilometers, should be put into this budget. We are just 109 senators. If each senatorial district is given one road, it means the whole country is covered. That will be my suggestion. I thank you, Mr. Senate President, for giving me this privilege. Thank you.
Senator Monday, you have the floor. Then thereafter, our esteemed minority leader will take the floor, so that we can have the perspective of the opposition leader, in respect to the budget. Then, of course, the deputy minority leader will then have the floor to say his view. For now, Monday, you have the floor.
Mr. President.
Sorry, Senator Monday.
My name is Monday Okpebolo. I represent the good people of Edo Central. 2024 budget to me is a budget of hope. The budget is very realistic because it takes into consideration the true state of affairs of both local and international economy. It is economically a hybrid or mixture of the relevant indicators of a good budget and focus on a physical reorganization of the nation's economy. It is a historic because this is the first time we are having a suiting budget in 9 years that is aimed at bringing comfort to the people. For me, it is a budget of a new beginning because it provides a platform for kickstarting a major part of our economy that will lead to a quick recovery and stability. Mr. President, I pray that this budget will take care of our people and it will take care of the road that leads from Auchi, Benin, Ewu, and Uromi to Onitsha. I submit, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Monday. The leader, before, let me seek your indulgence that we allow Senator Fada Hunsi to make his contribution. Then thereafter, the esteemed opposition leader will then yield the floor to you so that we'll have your perspective on the proposal sent to us by Mr. President. Senator Fada Hunsi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, for giving me the honor to at least to comment and contribute my own quota to the speech of Mr. President. First of all, I commend Mr. President for bringing the budget of hope to Nigerians when it was becoming hopeless because of the economic indices that were prevailing before he assumed office. Today, if we look at 2023, you see that 2023 we had 24.82 trillion as our budget for that year, where GDP was 6.1, deficit 13 point. Today, we are having 27.5 trillion. Non-oil expenditure 9.9. The capital expenditure is 8.7, which is unprecedented in the history of this presenting budget. Today, Mr. President now said in his first comment that to produce food at affordable prices is the major problem of the masses. Whether you talk about the current, the capital, or the grammar we are blowing, the masses that are the majority of the population, more than 90%, their own is to get basic amenities at an affordable price. Today, the inflation is high, the deficit is still high. To cram it up, you are having a crude oil price is $7.50, and exchange rate that propels the engine of importation, even exportation, is now at 1,250, and the official rate is almost 700. So I don't know how the government will balance the two. After this year, when the importation starts, you will see the inflation going up because the prices will be up. The way they buy is the way they will come and sell with a little margin. And the ease of doing business will hinder a lot of importation. Because right down there, you have thousands of containers being trapped at the port, which are now on demurrage. We talk about infrastructure, particularly capital. The capital budget is about 8.7 billion, which is very, very encouraging. And our own, as a whole, particularly the National Assembly, is to monitor all this budget implementation. If not, it will boil down to what has been happening in the past. Thorough supervision, so that the masses can benefit from all this trillion upon trillion we are mentioning. Mr. President, I commend Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for presenting the budget of hope. But my people will be caught away very soon if most critical roads are not repaired and tarred, particularly Ibadan, Ife, Ilesha to Akure Road.
You have 2 seconds.
In Osun State. In the next budget, and this coming budget, we want that fund that has been removed for supplementary budget, about that 500 million, to be returned, because most of the roads in Osun have been removed for the palliative. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before the minority leader gets the floor to speak, I would like to call on Senator Baribe. I didn't know he had not spoken. You're okay. Oh, okay. You have the floor.
Right, Mr. President. My name is Enyinnaya Baribe, Abia South. I'm just going to go direct to the point. 2 things from this budget. First, the Federal Executive Council approved, as part of this budget, the 8-point, I will say, agenda for the budget. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, nothing about power. Yet, in the same place, they are talking about employment. How are you going to employ anybody without power? How will the people who are welders, vulcanizers, and everybody do any work without power? So, and then in the main budget itself, I took time to go and look through the budget, and we're seeing that what was put for power was just about 3% of the total budget. Well, how would 3% of the total budget deal with an issue that is fundamental to the economy? Because if you don't have power, you do nothing. Every other thing that we are talking about, how would that work? So I think that this budget, I pray that we look around at it again as a Senate and see how we reorganize the priorities in the budget. Otherwise, what we will see is garbage in, garbage out.
The minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. On this particular occasion, I speak as Senator Abamoro, representing the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to, without sounding like a broken record, say that this is the first budget of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Tinubu, And for that reason, I want to say, like they say, it's baptism of fire. Having said that, Mr. President, I want to say that looking at the face of what we have here on paper, we have a budget of 27.5 trillion naira with a deficit of about 9.18 on the face of it, which is against a deficit of 13.78 of the previous year, 2023. But if you put all of them together, if you look at the direct deficit, if you look at debt servicing of 8.25, and you look at tax expenditure of 2.7 trillion, the whole deficit around this budget is about 17 trillion. Mr. President, of course, deficit budgeting is not an issue, but I think that what is at issue here is how we can fund the budget and implement the budget. Mr. President, in 2023, we are all aware that the performance of the budget was less than 50%. And so, if you see the quantum of money that has been budgeted for 2024, it's of course a budget of hope. And hope, they say, is the driver of life. But if you look at a few assumptions here, Mr. President, there is cause to sound some caution, and that we must walk the talk if this budget must be implemented. Mr. President has said that he will reduce borrowing. Very good. Mr. President said he is going to plug all the leakages in our economy. Very beautiful. But if you talk to some of the assumptions that we have here, Mr. President, I think we must realize an issue, that we have a huge challenge in front of us. First of it is, Mr. President, the assumption on oil production. The budget puts the projected oil production at 1.78 million barrels. But the average production level for the 2 previous years had been 1.2. And so that puts a challenge in front of all of us here of adding additional 500,000 barrels of oil production per year. Certainly, this is not going to be a main challenge. Mr. President, that means also that the activities of oil theft, illegal refineries, and other factors that will enhance oil production are addressed, and that is the only way that we can effectively implement the budget. Exchange rate projection, 750, beautiful. But in recent times, we have realized that the up and downs of the activities of the official market rates and the parallel market had been anything but encouraging. At one point, we got to the level of 750, but the next week, we are at 1,160. And Mr. President, I want to aver here that the exchange rate determines to a large extent the inflation rate. And from all indications from 2023, inflation has been a very serious bane on the implementation of our budget. And so again, I want to believe that Mr. President, as a reputable accountant in government, a veteran himself, will find a way around the problems of the undulating exchange rates. There's no gainsaying, therefore, that we are in a situation that we all have to sit and put our hands on the deck to ensure that we implement the budget as effectively as it can, so that we can open up the economy, so that we can invite and attract investors, and of course, take our people out of the poverty line that we have found ourselves today. Mr. President, let me say here that last year in the last Senate, 9th Senate, I made a point here that the UNESCO projects that every nation must at least put 26% of its annual budget on education. Today, from what our president has said, emphasis is on children. You can't bring up children without education. And what we have on our hands now, with 7% or so put on education now, certainly Mr. President's desire to educate our children and bring them up as true citizens may have some challenges. And so I want to say that if this year's budget has passed, we have another year. We must think seriously. Because look at what we have in our educational system here. Very epileptic. Your child goes to the...
Leader, you have 10 seconds, Leader. Because what is good for the goose is always good for the gander.
Serious note, I think that the time has come when we begin to think seriously about allocating money to education. ASU has been on strike most of the time because of money. Schools have been closed as a result of lack of infrastructures and lack of money. And so if we continue in that way, most of our children are going to neighboring countries to go to school because they don't know the time they are going to graduate from Nigerian universities. And so we must address this. Finally, Mr. President, I said before that unless we go away from this enveloping system of budgeting, we will find it very difficult to get it right. The enveloping system, as we have identified here, is a system of corruption. Every year, there is provision for e-library. Every year, there is provision for computers. And you begin to wonder, where are these items? They are neither there nor here. And so, Mr. President, I think that we must think about an alternative budgeting system. Because like I said, if we continue to do this thing the same way all the time, we won't get a different result.
Thank you.
Finally, sir, the 2022 supplementary budget, we must remind ourselves, in acceding to Mr. President's request to withdraw money from some projects to accommodate the palliative, we all agreed that projects that have been taking money from will have those monies returned and even more in the 2024 budget. I hope we have not forgotten them, because some of us may not be able to go home if some of those projects whose monies had been taken for the palliatives are not executed. And particularly, Mr. President, as chairman of the Appropriation Committee, you remember that a perennial road problem in my place, I pleaded with the committee, and you acceded and put some money there, the Otukpo Oju Road. That money was taken away. Now, the budget is here. I hope sincerely that project and other projects will have their monies restored so that the projects can be executed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minority Leader. I thought you were the Minority Leader of the Senate. I thought you talk about all the roads that have problems in the entire country, but now you are particular about your place. I mean, okay. And on a serious note, you talked about the oil production target. Yes, we have problem sometime last year and the beginning of this year, but the government is determined and is working very hard to make sure that we increase our oil output, deal with the issue of insecurity and, and what have you, and it's yielding result. And we are optimistic that the target being set is going to be met. So let's not be pessimistic about it. Right? So, looking at this, from the opposition point of view, but it's a challenge that all of us should work together to achieve. To achieve result. So don't be pessimistic. The 1 point, the target being set is going to be met by grace of God. The security agencies are doing very well. They are working, and we are going to achieve that target. And the issue of education you talked about, if you look at the address of Mr. President, he talked about human capital as the most critical resource for national development. So he's given much premium, much focus that it desires. The education sector is given much focus. In fact, just after a week or two after he was sworn in, he signed the Access to Tertiary Education Act, otherwise the Student Loans Act, and the implementation will begin by January. So the issue of our educational sector is being put in the front burner. So I think your fear should be assuaged by this assertion. So all is right on track to deal with the issues you've raised, and by the grace of God, things will change as we move into 2024. The Deputy Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished Senator, thank you for sparing a little bit time for me to add to the various opinions on this debate. We want to start by saying that I don't want to repeat most of the things that have been said, but to just point out at some germane issues. The first thing I will say is that this budget cannot be described as ambitious budget. Rather, I will say this is one of the most realistic budgets I've ever seen, taking care of almost all aspects. And I want to point out too that rather than talking of a budget in isolation, this budget is taking root from the previous budget. This budget is giving credence to the past government of APC. When you look at all the indices, the size of the budget, the revenue side of it, the deficit side of it, the capital side, recurrent debt service, and so on and so forth, you will discover that they have a good correlation with 2023. And what is showing from this is that we have a graph that is moving up where it is necessary to move up, and that is moving down where it's necessary to move down. The fact of it is that when we continue in this trajectory, it's like linking the past government with the present government. And continuity is a very, very important thing in governance. I'm very optimistic that a 2025 budget too will definitely be bigger than this. Talking to many economists, their expectation is that this year's budget will be around the figure of 35 trillion. But we thank God that what the president is bringing in is quite realistic and quite achievable. I will equally want to point out as some salient points in the speech of the president that had almost disappeared in all our discourse, and that's on private partnership. The president mentioned it in his paragraph 22 when he said that big ticket infrastructure projects in energy, I'm trying to address the fear of Senator Abaribe, transportation, and other sectors will be encouraged on public-private partnership. And he went on too to say that's on paragraph 34, that we are also exploring public-private partnership arrangement to finance critical infrastructure. I am pointing out at this because I know whatever may be the size of any nation's budget, which by any standard, the infrastructure, the amount allocated to infrastructure here might look so big, but in terms of real value, when you convert it into dollars, it's no more than $10 billion, which is by the size of Nigeria, which is quite small. So the next thing is that we have to leverage on this private sector participation. And I think the Senate should do everything possible to make sure that this aspect of public sector financing is encouraged. Mr. President, I thank you very much, and I advise that we should quickly go into the second reading of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished senators, for your contributions, your robust contributions to the debate on the second reading of the 2024 Appropriations Bill. Most of you spoke very much in support of the budget of Renew Hope, which, of course, it is a budget that seeks to achieve rich economic growth, macroeconomic stability, a better investment environment, enhanced human capital development, as well as poverty reduction and greater access to social security. Now, you all spoke in favor and in support of this bill, the proposal by Mr. President in respect of our 2024 budget. Looking at what is encapsulated in the proposal, it's very clear that once the proposal is implemented, will record very, very, well, I would say, prosperity in this country, because it contains all that is needed in bringing prosperity to our nation. What is expected is that we should all work together to make sure that we look at the budget, make sure if there are mistakes, we correct them in terms of the details by the time it moves to the second stage of its processing, so that we'll be able, in conjunction with the executive, put a very, very, we can't say a perfect budget together, but something that will be very much relied upon in terms of accuracy, so that by the time the budget is implemented, and together, we should work, get it passed and send it to Mr. President, and also focus thereafter on the implementation, so that together with the executive of government, we shall see the full implementation of the budget in the way that prosperity will be ushered into our land, as is the vision of Mr. President. Mr. President has the vision, the foresight, as seen in the packaging of the budget, to work hand in hand with all well-meaning Nigerians to bring about a situation where we shall experience prosperity that we have never seen before in this country. So we need to work together. We need to work together with Mr. President, because he's somebody who has shown the zeal, the political will to turn around things in this country for the betterment of all of us. It is on this note that I will call, I will now put the question. Oh, sorry, sorry, I didn't know you want to. Okay, you can make your contribution, then we round off. Sorry.
President, when you called my name, I said after my colleagues spoke, I didn't know that I gave an indication that I didn't want to speak. Thank you very much. My name is Ahmed Lawan. I represent Yobe North Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me, by way of intervention, follow suit to commend Mr. President for the presentation of a budget for renewed hope in Nigeria and in life. Mr. President, I dare say that the success of any government administration in a democracy will depend significantly on how the legislature supports the administration. And I believe that we have seen different examples of what could happen if the legislature decides to support an administration. And the support does not have to be that everything would be perfect. The legislature could decide, by way of support, to also identify areas of deficit and weakness in something that comes from the administration. So I believe that we must continue to give every possible support to this administration, to Mr. President, because this is our government, all of us, including those on my right. What I mean is this budget is our budget. But this budget alone does not determine what happens in terms of prosperity in Nigeria. What happens to 2022 supplementary budget? What has happened to 2023 Appropriation Act? Of course, when we provided supplementary for the security agencies, we expect that there will be improvement in security. I therefore submit that while talking on this appropriation bill for 2024, our committees should be also interested in what has happened in the implementations of 2022 supplementary for the palliatives, for 2023 budget, and for another supplementary for the security. Because that will give us clearer and better idea of what we should or we must appropriate. Having said this, Mr. President, let me put some few things in place. When our girls or our students are kidnapped or abducted from schools, education suffers. When our farmers cannot, in some places, particularly in northern Nigeria, go to their farms and cultivate their crops. Why? Security challenge. When solid minerals cannot be mined in so many parts of Nigeria where we have significant endowments, we have some security challenges even where efforts are made to mine them. And Zamfara comes to mind. Mr. President, we have every reason to spend more and more and more on security. until we get it right. If we want the 1.7 million oil production target to be achieved, to fund the implementation of this budget, Mr. President, we need to continuously have a secured and a safe production environment in the Niger Delta. If we want our children and wards to go to school and remain in school and learn, and our teachers to go and teach, Mr. President, we need secured and safe schools. In the Northeast alone, by 2021, over 2,000 teachers were killed. And many thousands of schools have been closed in Nigeria today due to insecurity. I believe that the security challenges in Nigeria have made it difficult for us to realize most of our targets in terms of providing services to the people, building of infrastructure, and therefore, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let's prioritize security. We provided some funds by way of supplementary. We must understand how those funds have been put into use and the outcome that we would have achieved. I believe that the security, in addition to the resources that we need to give them, we also need to look at their operational relationships. We have just returned from a seminar in Switzerland. I think most of the security-related committees were there. We returned this morning. And we could see where our gaps are when it comes to total security provision in our country. So, Mr. President, I will urge the Senate and indeed the National Assembly that we must never get tired of providing more and more funds and resources for our security and armed forces for us to achieve those lofty targets of diversifying our economy through safe agricultural environments, for educating our children and youth in our schools, for diversifying our economy through mining in those areas that are endowed with solid minerals. And Mr. President, we should ask ourselves, when we signed the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, it was expected that Nigeria will be the major beneficiary, being the largest economy on the continent. Have we reviewed our performance in terms of the implementation of this? Certainly not. Two things, in my opinion, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. First, insecurity. Second, lack of power. Even though the Deputy Senate leader indicated that power is still there. Mr. President, if we are not able to see power being properly handled in the budget, due to whatever reasons, we should do so. We should provide better support for power. The last Senate, the last National Assembly, passed the power sector reform bill at our twilight, and it was assented to by then President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the power sector reform is one reform in the power sector, for the power sector, that will give us the necessary energy environment and mix through public, private, or private participation that will make power available for our economy to provide growth and development, and of course, the much desired prosperity. With this, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the second reading of this bill, and I also wish to say that it is gladdening that we are all making effort to pass the budget before the end of the year, a tradition, a feat achieved by the 9th National Assembly, and is worthy of support by every successive National Assembly. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the privilege.
Thank you, the former President of the Senate, for your contribution, which really touched on those areas that have been emphasized, that emphasis has been placed on in respect to the budget proposal by Mr. President, particularly the area of security, where the President wrote clearly that defense and internal security are accorded top priority, that the internal security architecture will be overhauled to enhance law enforcement capabilities and safeguard lives, property, and investment across the country. So the President has also placed very important premium on the issue of security. It's a top priority. And the Chairman of the Committee on Defense have also emphasized that. This is very good. A nation that is not secured, where peace does not prevail, will always have problems. And so all within Nigeria, particularly Mr. President, has placed very, very important premium, very, very high premium on the area of security. And of course, even the power sector, power very, very important. We need to have our acts put together in the best fashion possible, because without power, without energy, our real sector will not be up and running. Thank you for your contributions. They are very germane. Well, the points raised are germane, and thank God the Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations here. I'm sure he's taking note. I saw him taking note while you were speaking, and those things will be factored into his report by the grace of God. It is on this note, I now put the question that, sorry? Yes. And I now put the question that those in favor that the bill be now read a second time, please say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 27,403,404,703,861 naira only, of which 1,376,352,359,690 naira only is for statutory transfer. 8,490,960,606,831 naira only is for debt service. 9,918,248,229,6 600 naira only is for recurrent, non-debt expenditure. 7 trillion non-debt expenditure, while 7 trillion 717 billion 842 million 877,740 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2024. Second reading.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 27,503,404,073,861 naira only, of which 1,362,352,351,699 90 naira only is for statutory transfers. 8,490,960,606,831 naira only is for debt service. 9,18,248,229,600 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 7,317,842,877,740 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2024. Second reading taken and passed. The bill is hereby referred to the Committee on Appropriation and to report back on the 19th day of December 2023. The leader. Appropriation Committee as led by Senator Adiola Solomon to report back on the 19th day of December 2023.
Mr. Senate President, standing on Order 1B, I wish to move that we suspend the order of the day to allow for the passage of FCT budget. I so move.
The Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that we suspend the order of the day to allow for the passage of the FCT bill. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion as moved by the Majority Leader and the seconded by Minority Leader, please say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Minority Leader. The Leader, sorry.
Mr. President, you may wish to call the FCT chairman to present the report of Senate Committee of Federal Capital Territory on FCT Supplementary Statutory Appropriation Bill 2023.
FCT Chairman, Senator Buma, you have the floor. First of all, you move for the laying and consideration, all right?
To move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of Senate Committee on FCT on 2023 supplementary appropriations. I so move.
Senator Victor May, can you please second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor May. I rise to second the motion that the report of the Senate Committee on Federal Capital Territory on the FCT Supplementary Statutory Appropriation Bill 2023 be presented to the Senate for consideration.
Senator Buma, you may lay the report. The Chief Whip.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, I just want to clarify a small issue as we go into the session. Quorum is normally at the beginning of the sitting. So we are taking this very important report, that is the budget of the FCT, because by today we are going to suspend plenary and start committee works so that the media people will know, say, yeah, we are aware that the report of the FCT budget, which has been considered by the committee, will be received and considered today.
Thank you very much for your guidance. Your guidance is noted. Boma, you may read your report. Senator Boma, sorry.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I wish to present the report of the Senate Committee on FCT on statutory appropriation of the FCT 2023. Distinguished colleagues, you could recall that in line with the provisions of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, the communication from Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces was read in this hallowed chambers on Tuesday, 28th of November 2023, seeking for approval of supplementary budget to the FCT 2023 Statutory Appropriation Act of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, totaling to the sum of 61,553,778,259 naira 93 kobo. In accordance with Section 62, 80, 88, 89, and 299 of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, the Senate Committee on FCT met...
Please summarize your report.
The committee met with the minister and identified the following 5 items as the source of revenues, additional revenues: Paris Club refund, tax, liabilities, special intervention fund, IGR, infrastructure support fund. Observations. The committee examined the sources of revenue of the proposed supplementary budget. Secondly, the committee also critically examined the proposed expenditure, both overhead and capital, and agreed with the proposed augmentation. The recommendation. The committee, having gone through the 2023 FCT supplementary appropriation as presented by the Honorable Minister, hereby wish to recommend a total revenue of 61,553,778,260, and the same figure for the total expenditure. Accordingly, the committee hereby present this recommendation for this Hollow Chamber Senate for approval and also consideration and passing it into law. I hereby move.
Thank you very much. Is there any comment? The Senate leader, please move so that we can move to the committee of the whole. Move the motion.
Mr. President, the presentation very straightforward, and there's a good match between the revenue and expenditure. I will therefore move that we resolve into committee of whole to approve the budget.
The Senate Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I write to second the motion that will dissolve to committee of whole to consider the report. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We go to the page 4 where we have the recommendations, right? Yeah. Is that the same? No, come. Let me put the question. Does the Senate approve the recommendation as set out on page 4? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate Leader. Back to the committee of...
Mr. President, I move that we move back to preliminary.
The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the Chair moves to plenary, the Senate refers to plenary to report progress. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. It's okay. Distinguished Senators, an act to authorize the issue from the Federal Capital Territory Administration Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Territory Administration account, the total sum of 61,553,778,260 naira only, of which the sum of 12,900,000,000 naira only is for overhead costs, while the balance of 48,653,778,260 naira only is for capital project for the service of the Federal Capital Territory Abuja for the financial year ending on 31st December 2023. As approved in the Committee of the Whole, the Senate, is it the reflection, is it the true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of Supply? The Senate Leader. Senate Leader.
Senate President, I will move that the bill be read the third time.
Minority Leader.
The President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the Supplementary Statutory Appropriation Bill 2023 of the FCT be read the third time.
Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, an act to authorize the issue of the Federal Capital Territory Administration Statutory Revenue Fund for the Federal Capital Territory Administration account, the total sum of 61,500,000,000. 61,553,778,260 naira only, of which the sum of 12,900,000,000 naira only is for overhead cost, while the balance of 48,653,778,260 naira only is for capital project for the service of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, for the financial year ending 31st December 2023, third reading.
Distinguished colleagues, an act to authorize the issue from the Federal Capital Territory Administration Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Capital Territory Administration account, the total sum of 61 billion 553 million 778,260 naira only, of which the sum of 12 billion 900 million naira only is for overhead costs, while the balance of 48 billion 653 million 778,260 naira only is for capital projects for the service of the Federal Capital Territory Abuja for the financial year ending 31st day of December 2023. Third reading. The bill having been read for the third time is hereby passed. No. Distinguished colleagues, we will adjourn and come back for another sitting of the Senate in 30 minutes so that we can pass the votes and proceedings and therefore adopt all that we have done today. The chairman of preparation is happy. So, distinguished colleagues, this Senate is hereby adjourned for today, and we shall resume. The next sitting shall happen at 1800 hours, that is 6 p.m. of today. So Senate is hereby adjourned to second day of December at 6 p.m. prompt. Huh? Second December is when? So first now. And why did you tell me second now? So the Senate is adjourned the 1st of December at 6 p.m.